2:30, call the meeting to order. I'll stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, special meeting today. Property at 522 North Main Street flood hazard.
So maybe, if it's all right with you guys, I'd like to give you the introduction. Just tell me when you're ready.
Go ahead.
Okay, so over the last several days, in connection with Dan Larson's office, I was made aware, as was Abby, that there was a prospective issue involving a water leak. That location, I believe, and Dan can give the particulars, I believe it's 522 North. Dan, what's the precise address?
522 North Main Street.
Okay, North Main Street. Thereafter, because there was visible drainage water concern from the outside of that particular premises, Dan did what he could to visually inspect. He contacted one of our water department folks, and he attempted to, and did, in fact, turn off the water at the curb stop. As all of the commission knows, everything after the curb stop belongs to the homeowner. In the course of that visual inspection, it appeared to Dan that the basement in that home, 522 North Main, had likely filled completely with water because of the seepage. Several efforts were made to contact the owner to secure her consent to enter that residence to try to assess what we have going on. And as much as that leak is concerned, because it appeared that, the leak persisted after the curb stop was turned, which leads us to believe there's a significant possibility that the leak or the issue is within the home. Contact was made with the owner. The owner of that building residence is Rachel Vincent. She was apprised of what we believe to be the issue. She was not pleased that we made contact with her, and she expressly indicated to us that she would not consent to the city's entry into the residence. Okay, so several attempts to secure permission to enter the residence were made. That actually occurred again yesterday. Abby and I spoke with Ms. Vincent when she returned a call to my office. At the time yesterday, late afternoon, that Ms. Vincent returned a call to my office, she confirmed on the phone to Abby and I that the basement is indeed full of water. She made numerous assertions about why or how that might be, alleging that this is all the city's fault. Beside the point, we were not interested in arguing with her. I asked again, would you please consent to us entering the premises so that we can do what we need to do to get that pumped out, drained, whatever we need to do to make an assessment of what's going on here. She refused, very plainly. So the reason that we need this meeting is because, like all things that in America, where there's an implication of privacy, particularly in a person's home or place, and there's a government actor that wishes to go inside, there has to be some form of hearing or determination before the governing body. In this case, that would be the City Commission of Tioga, based on probable cause to enter the residence if the individual homeowner does not permit you to do it voluntarily. So we brought Dan here to you this morning. Dan can give you a brief rundown of the facts that we believe create probable cause to secure an emergency order from the commission. That's what Dan is seeking, an emergency order to enter the home at 522 North Main Street, so that it may be examined specifically for the purposes of assessing what that situation is. It's also worth noting, and Dan can give you further information about that, that there does appear to be this is an immediacy issue because there is an adjacent property, the property right next door, which is 15 or 20 feet away. Its basement appears to be leaking water. Again, a visual assessment seems to suggest, based on the circumstances, that probably that's because there's a basement full of water at the house 15 feet away. There doesn't appear to be any other reason that there would be a leak. So I'll let Dan finish with that, but that's the purpose of the meeting. Dan is seeking an emergency order to enter 522 North Main in order to abate the water emergency there.
Thank you, Liz, for that summary of events leading up to this. I was notified of the water leak and this shut off of the water mid-morning on Monday, and went up there to observe the property and the water leak. The water that was flowing out or had flowed out into the street with ice, you know, that gets soaked up by the snow and the ice in the street. Went up to look. There was a puddle, as the pictures show in your packet, of the water and a water puddle that was exposed next 2 feet or so from Rachel's house. In the preceding hours, I guess, or in the day as it progressed, I had heard that the neighbor to the south had potential or was concerned, at least. It was kind of unclear at that point, but I had inquired with Dennis and in the mid-afternoon about and tried to contact him. He allowed me to come into his house and to show me where the water was actually leaking and flowing into his basement. And the pictures show it on the wall that I'd taken for you at that time. It was on the lower fourth of the wall, about a foot or two off the floor. There was a crack in the wall that had been there. Obviously, water will easily seep through that. As far as why I think it might be the water coming from this water leak next door, obviously there was a lot of surface water on the ground that was under the snow. Where all that water went, I don't know. It's like it didn't show everything, you know, because it was covered up by the snow and hard packed snow. But there was also there hasn't been a thaw of natural causes, you know, for the temperature to melt snow and ice to where water could possibly leak in from those from ice and water, ice and, you know, and a thaw of melting of snow from temperatures outside. So the only thing, you know, common sense just leads me to believe that is from the neighbor to the north. I had since contacted Dennis, and Dennis is here today. And thank you for coming. But as of yesterday morning, which would be Tuesday morning, he indicated to me on the phone yesterday afternoon that the water seemed to have either slowed down or had stopped as of yesterday morning, which would be about 24 hours after the water was shut off by the water department at the curb stop. Yesterday afternoon, I believe you might have a copy, or at least there was a recording of a phone conversation with Rachel that she had called me yesterday afternoon. Was in, I guess, in a very excited tone of voice that we were not going to enter in her property because there's no reason to. She admitted that there was some water in the basement and it's not her problem. It's a city's fault. It's split at the water split at the main is what the term I think she called. It's all in the tape recording there. But anyway, irregardless, she was refusing anything to cooperate to help her or the neighbor or the city or anybody to help resolve the issue, whatever it is. It's not her fault per se, you know, it's just, there's an issue. We need to work together. And so she has been very difficult and refusing to, you know, cooperate. So I believe in Jeff is here. I don't know if he wants to, or you want him to say anything, but he could tell more details too, as far as when he was first up there on that. Saying that.
So if you're granted access.
I don't know what else.
If you're granted access, you can fix the problem.
I mean, Jeff could answer that more, but I believe in my thinking is that if we can get to the end source of where the problem is coming from, then we can figure out from the street to the house. Was it before the meter that the break is, or is it after the meter, or what? I mean, there's variables in this to help determine where or what the water leak is, and if shutting off at the curb stop where we believe it's shut off, is it really shut off? I mean, is it still leaking past a little bit, seeping past that curb stop? So I think that needs to be determined in my mind, but.
Okay, I guess I'll jump in here. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to type notes of this meeting, so whichever way you go, there's an order if necessary. Dan, I guess we didn't speak rather late afternoon yesterday. So I want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. The neighbor's basement, the one that was leaking, even after the curb had been turned off, has there been a complete cessation, a complete stop of drainage into that basement or not? Because that's our principal concern. That's why this is emergency in nature, is that the goings on at Ms. Vincent's home are going to adversely impact immediately adjacent properties if a member of the city does not get in there and abate and address that. So is that a concern or no?
Well, it's obvious, I believe that the water was coming from this water leak and was entering into the neighbor's house. Whether it's continuing or if it has totally stopped, I don't know. But Dennis is here and he could, if you want to come up to the podium. State your name.
Yes, I'm Dennis Hendricks. I reside at 518 North Main. And here the other day, I went down to my basement to change the furnace filter. And I noticed the crack in my wall and there's water flowing through that crack. We notified the city, the water was shut off. I've checked several times now since then. And the flow has ceased, the wall is drying up. So I think our problem right now, once the water was turned off, was taken care of. Although I may have more problems too with the ground is saturated, once the thaw starts, there may be more concern. But I don't know how much is going to be from the snow melt versus the water itself. So I guess my concern, what our interest would be, has there been an increase in the water went through the meter or not since she's been out of that house? Is that water not going through the meter or is the break somewhere else?
That's the question.
Yeah, I think that's what the answer has to be made. But for hazard or problem, I had shoulder surgery and my face in front of the house is solid ice. My more concern is falling than anything right now.
Okay, and that's a fair point in as much as that witness is concerned. I mean, that's something that the commission should take under advisement, that obviously everything is frozen at the moment. I am not an engineer, I am not a plumber, but I think the concern is that as conditions change and without assessment, and we don't know if it's still leaking past the curb or not, sounds like it's slowed down a little, that it may be wise for the city to attempt to drain or pump out some of the water from the immediately adjacent home, Vincent's home, because we certainly don't want damage to neighboring properties if weather or ground conditions change. Is that a fair summary of what you're trying to tell us?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I have nothing more. Thank you.
I have one question. Oh, sorry. Would it be appropriate if we ask an officer, if we go into the house to pump it out or assess what's going on, to have an officer come in with this?
Yeah, I think that's,
Definitely.
Maybe two. One in and one out.
So Chief Nelson, title, please. Liz, maybe you can answer this question a little bit better than I at this point. However, I know that in terms of criminal matters, we need to have a warrant signed by a judge to enter a residence. Now, I realize and understand your circumstances here are much different than what I deal with on a criminal matter. However, I feel as though if I were to enter that house, I mean, I don't have a problem going there for scene security. However, I don't feel it would be appropriate without a signed warrant by a judge to be able to enter that premises. I feel that there would be a concern for a Fourth Amendment that would go into a search, potentially seizure type incident.
Right, that was my question too, so I wanted to check if Liz had any guidance on that.
Yeah.
so the Supreme Court's been pretty clear, because there was a prior point in time in various municipalities or places around the United States where they were called administrative warrants, and basically, cities would issue them without sufficient cause under the Fourth Amendment. The Fourth Amendment requires probable cause as a threshold constitutionally, and folks were going in there for purely, inspection purposes to make sure that you were compliant with various technical features of code. But the courts have pretty uniformly held that if there is probable cause to believe that there is an actual and imminent emergency either to city infrastructure or other properties that are in near proximity or may suffer a threat, that if you approach the appropriate tribunal and that tribunal hears credible evidence that there is probable cause to support those things, that you do not violate the Fourth Amendment. If there's an order that issues, and it would be limited scope in this case, an order that issues to allow the appropriate body to enter the residence, to assess and abate whatever that threat is. And so to be clear with the commission, this isn't going to be, if they were to grant it, there's not going to be a hike all over the Vincent household. The parties who enter the home would be directed, and that should be a member of city personnel, probably Dan. I understand Josh's reservations. I would ask that law enforcement appear at the premises. If Josh is uncomfortable entering the premises, that's perfectly fine. Really the reason you would have law enforcement there is for a civil standby, because as indicated, Ms. Vincent was quite adamant, even though she admitted that her basement was entirely full of water. She admitted that she had not sent a person down to assess it. And she did not indicate that she had any plans to abate that situation, even though she was expressly told that there was a possibility that adjacent properties would be damaged. And that's the sticky wicket we're in. Had she agreed or otherwise assessed that situation, we wouldn't be here talking about this. But the order allowing entry into the home is what it'll be, would be limited in scope, and it would direct the appropriate city personnel to assess the situation and to take whatever means are appropriate and necessary to abate that situation to avoid further damage to other adjacent properties.
Excellent. Thank you for the clarification, Liz.
And for a little more clarification, Rachel has not been in her home for a couple of months, correct? She's not living there currently?
According to, Yeah, according to what she shared, even with us, she spent $150 on a cab back and forth. I mean, we don't have personal knowledge of what she's actually doing, but she indicated that she was, the word she used was treatment. She indicated that she was in some form of treatment out of town. Dan is generally aware that it appears that no one has ingressed or egressed the house probably for a period of months. There are no driveways cleared, no walkways cleared, I mean, at the time that this ordeal cropped up. She is certainly out of town. There was also an issue, and I mean, it's not necessarily totally material, but it probably lends or might suggest why some of this happened within her home. Initially, Miss Vincent represented to Dan that there was no heat in the home, which of course, if you have sub-zero temperatures and everything freezes up and then everything thaws, that could lead to leakage or breakage within her home and past our curb. Later in that conversation, as I understand it, and Dan can correct me if I'm wrong, because that was a conversation he had with her, she indicated there was quote unquote a little heat in the house. So it's very hard to know from Miss Vincent what exactly is going on there, other than she did confirm that her basement is completely full of water and proceeded to blame that entirely on the city.
I had also observed, and I think other people has observed that as of the last few weeks or a month or so, there was no smoke or steam or whatever coming out of the chimney stack. When we drive by, usually you would see something. I guess why I say that is my eyes are on that property. I mean, it's all of us know it's a flag property. And the windows, as in the pictures I've described, have been frosted over to varying degrees. When it gets warmer out, the frost seems to go away, which would be normal. And then when it gets colder, they frost up. And obviously in these pictures that you have here from 2 days ago, is that there's been water, moisture, icicles that are discolored, rusty in color, red in color, hanging from the windowsill. So I mean, it does show excess water in there, in moisture in the structure. And so anyway, it's just, yeah, is there heat? Light has been on in the house for most of the winter. It has gone off some nights. There's been nothing, and no tracks around to the house, to and from the house. And I have even taken pictures just to show and remind us or me that what I'm saying is truthful. And that no one has entered or walked around the property from the city or neighbors or whatever. There's no tracks. It's just pure white, smooth field of snow. Yeah, so I believe that the light, well, I know that the light was out in the northwest bedroom window. It used to be pretty clear that there was a light on at nighttime. The last several weeks, or at least a week or so, there's been no light. So either the bulb burnt out or somebody turned the switch off, which I don't believe that because there's been no foot tracks to the house. So or the electrical panel got wet and flooded and tripped the breakers. And if water is full in the basement, then the whole thing is shot, the electrical panel. And amongst other things. Not that I really care so much what she does to her house, that's her issue to a point. But when it especially affects the neighbors, potentially, it is my problem. It is my issue and concern.
Well, I think we should probably get in there. We definitely need to assess the damage. Would we be responsible for pumping it out then? I'm guessing she's not gonna be able to handle that. We would.
Jeff, I have a question for you. Now, she's claiming that this water is coming from the main.
Well, technically it is coming from water main through the water service.
I mean, something wrong at the main.
If it was that, the house across the street would be flooding, Danny's house would be flooding, everybody down the street would be flooding. Water doesn't run uphill. You know,
That's what I wanted to know. Since she doesn't have much.
well, no, but when the basement flooded, it snuffed your furnace off. It happened last time the house flooded. Water filled up, shut her furnace off. Shut the electrical system down.
Has this happened before?
It's dangerous to walk around there unless the power is energized, unless the house is energized, because everything on the house out there, you're standing in water, and that view, that power from the power pole isn't being shut off. That panel down the basement.
Okay, so then if we go in there to pump it out to find out where this water is coming from, then we're gonna have to shut the power off.
I believe Liz, when she
Yes.
spoke yesterday, she said that she called utility services to shut them off.
Yesterday, she indicated, but I mean, certainly that's something that you would want to verify independently. Ms. Vincent was, as Dan said, somewhat animated. I guess I was gonna put that during the call. She alleged that she had contacted MDU, believing that there might be a fire damage or a potential for fire damage as a result of the catastrophic flooding, but that was just a representation. We haven't confirmed that independently.
I have one more question. When she said her basement was full, how long has she known that the water has been in there? And how did she find out?
I got contacted on Monday.
But she said she knew it already,
Yeah.
and mentioned there's water in there, correct?
So what's her
How
water?
did she find that out?
And was her water in there before she left there? Because I live in tracks there for months.
She hasn't been there since, nobody's been there since December. The windows have been propped up since the end of December. That means that there's some water in the house.
She indicated yesterday she took a taxi here and spent $150 on the taxi to come and stuff. And she told Liz and I, over the phone that she was there and that her house was flooded and that it's our fault because there was a water main break.
But when she goes to the house, she didn't notify anyone either, and then she had that
No.
time.
Now she called, well, how did she get into the house? Because there's no cracks, there's no next door, there's no cracks, except for other cracks. She said she was there last night, yesterday, and I'm assuming between 3 and 7,
Well, I don't know for tracks.
or 3 and 5. She called me tonight before 5.
Yeah, the neighbor across the street reported that she coming attack in the border.
Really?
Yeah, go in the back door.
She went to the front door.
Was it?
She came in on the side, on the side street, 6th Street, side. And walked up that way, walked through the Cambridge Court, that's what it was, and she followed through. And then.
I'd like to make a motion to go to the house.
Says, the
I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions? If not, we'll vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, motion carried.
Okay, guys, I'm just gonna run by the order here because I don't want any confusion and I'm not gonna be available for the duration of the day. So can I read this while Dan's present and then make sure that everyone's on the same page before I shoot this off to Abby to slam signatures on? Is that good with you guys? Whoops, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I couldn't hear you. Okay, so it's going to be an order authorizing emergency entry into residence to abate and assess nuisance which endangers adjoining properties. That's the title. It says, whereas the city commission conducted a special meeting on March 15, 2023, whereas certain witnesses gave testimony regarding significant water leakage and accumulation at 522 North Main Street, Tioga, North Dakota. The contents of such testimony are fully incorporated herein by reference. So Abby, please maintain a copy, as you always do, of these proceedings. Now therefore, the city having heard such testimony, the city finds that there is probable cause to believe that such water leakage and accumulation endangers adjoining property, that the owner of 522 North Main Street, Tioga, North Dakota, has failed or refused to consent to permit an appropriate member of the city to enter the residence to assess the issue, determine the point of leak, and attempt to mitigate further leakage and damage to adjacent property owners and or utilities. The city commission, having found such probable cause exists, and having found that there is imminent threat to adjacent properties without assessment and appropriate abatement, hereby orders, number one, that the appropriate representatives of the city shall enter the residence and shall make assessment of the leakage or cause of the leakage, that the city shall take reasonable measures to abate or mitigate the leakage in order to prevent further and other damage to adjacent properties, that the city shall have a period of 10 days within which to effectuate the terms of this order. And number four, that the city shall immediately deliver a copy of this order to Rachel Vincent and shall post a copy of the same at a conspicuous location at the residence. Everybody good with that for the purposes of the order?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna shoot this to you, Abby, and you can put signatures on it for me. Okay, that's all I had, guys.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Before you get that, I just have one question. So you want the city to pump it out then?
I want you guys to assess it and to determine what the least intrusive, but most reasonable means to abate that is. That's what needs to be done. We don't do anything more than what is necessary to assess the situation and to curb it from affecting adjacent properties. So that's going to be a kind of your call, Jeff, after you make the assessment. I presume you're going to have to pump it out to make the assessment. I don't know how you could possibly make the assessment without clearing that basement of water.
Do you feel comfortable pumping it out?
If it stays full, it's just gonna, the water's just gonna migrate out of the basement to adjoining property. If we pump it out, we take the chance of the basement collapse. So, you know, I mean, we pumped it out once before, but you know, and then where do you pump it? Pump it on the street. That's cool. They're gonna have more ice to deal with.
So do we maybe hire a company to come in and pump it out?
Yeah, can't we use a back truck? I mean, aren't there back trucks for hire?
It's gonna take many truckloads to haul it out. I mean, we could probably pump it down the sewer line. But, as I said, you take a chance. If we don't pump it out, you can't tell what's damaged. And if you pump it out, you take the chance on the basement collapsing from being so saturated on the outside. Because if there's water going across the Denny's basement, that tells me all the ground is saturated between both houses. Yeah. Because when I walked back there the other day, the ground is soft. So someone else has to make that call. I mean, that'll definitely go look at it. If the basement's full, it needs to be pumped. But you stand a chance of damaging either way. Either damaging Denny's or the house that, you know, you pump out, so. That just needs to be cleared up before we go. I mean, we go assess it, yeah, the basement's full, well, now what do we do?
That's a question for someone with expertise on that point, and I would strongly suggest that once you've secured this order, again, Dan needs to convey that to her immediately, and it needs to be posted. Her meaning Rachel. I would let her know that the city has authorized entry into the home, and I would express to her your competing concerns. And if she wishes to remediate it herself, I would certainly let her. But I don't know the right answer to that, Jeff, because I don't have the expertise as to what is the least damaging means to make sure that it doesn't damage adjacent properties.
But if we don't, you know, if it doesn't get pumped out, it freezes in that basement, you'll have a basement full of ice. And you'll still have it pump full.
You're still gonna have issues to that particular structure. We have water, irregardless of what we do.
Yep. Oh, I agree, but that's the concern, you know.
Totally legit.
So what it comes down to is the lesser of two evils.
Unless if you probably to pump it out. Pump it out and then if something happens, it happens. But we have to be able to, we don't know if the water meter is still installed in the basement. We have no idea of that. And as long as that basement flooded, we can't read the meter.
Now, you can't find the cause if it's flooded.
So, just pump it out. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I would say pump it out. But let's make sure that the power is shut off first.
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna go in the house until we know the power's off.
Because I don't think you'd look good with a fried goatee.
I don't have enough hair left to make it happen.
Okay, anything further?
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Adjourn?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn and a second. Any questions? If not, we'll vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Meeting adjourned.